Hello, and welcome to I Am Dad Podcast with your fatherhood authority, Kenneth Braswell. 30 minutes of wisdom, information, resources, and nuggets to help you on your fatherhood journey. Or maybe you're just curious and want to hear some real talk about fatherhood, family, and the minds of men. Well, guess what? We got you too. Sit back, grab your pad and pen, and maybe even bring a little something to sip on. Enjoy 30 straight minutes of fatherhood, family, and fun with the Fatherhood Authority, Kenneth Braswell.
Welcome to I Am Dad Podcast. I'm your host, Kenneth Braswell. Thank you for joining us another Sunday. Thaddeus Bullard, known to millions as WWE Superstar Titus O'Neil, is not only a celebrated athlete and global entertainer, but also a devoted father, philanthropist, and community advocate. From the football fields of the University of Florida to the bright lights of the WWE, Titus has carried a deep commitment to creating change and empowering others. As a father to three, a champion of charitable initiatives, and the author of Wrestling with Fatherhood, My Championship Journey to My Greatest Title, Dad, Titus O'Neil has embraced his role as a leader both in and out of the ring. His inspiring journey from a challenging childhood to a life of purpose and impact offers lessons of resilience, fatherhood, and the power of giving back. Today, we are thrilled to explore his story. We're going to have a good time just having a conversation with a friend. How you doing, sir?
Good, man.
You good?
Yes, sir.
Listen, we start this podcast off very uniquely by asking a question. You could tell this story from however you want to tell it, whichever way you want to tell it. We just think it's an intimate way to start it. Tell your daddy's story.
Well, my daddy's story is, multi-layered, but first off, I never met my dad. I'm the product of a rape. My mom was raped at 11 and had me at the age of 12, against the wishes of many. Grew up as a kid that was told he'd be dead or in jail by the time he was 16 and didn't really have male leadership in the home at all. And I was headed that direction, and then got a chance to go to a place called the Florida Sheriff's Boys Ranch up in Live Oak, Florida. And if it wasn't for that place and a conversation that I had at 12 years old that literally changed my life, I wouldn't be in the position that I'm in today. Was getting ready to get kicked off of the Boys Ranch. Mr. Pat Minogue, who was the president of the Boys Ranch at the time, called me in and he said, "Why do you think you get in trouble all the time?" And I said, "I don't know, man, I'm just a bad kid." And he said, "There's no such thing as a bad kid." And I said, "How can you say that? I've been told I'll be dead or in jail by the time I was 16. I won't ever graduate, I won't go to college. I won't ever play sports. Too uncoordinated, too dumb, too this, yada, yada." The list was long. And he said, "I'm not going to give you the answer to that because I truly believe that you're going to turn things around and you'll find the answer out for yourself. In the meantime, I'm going to tell you something and I want you to believe it." He said, "I love you and I believe in you." Mm-hmm. And a lot of people had told me that they loved me and then turn around and abuse me, beat me, curse me, etc. Mm-hmm. But nobody had ever told me that they believed that I can do anything. And it was him alongside Mr. Charles Blaylock, first black superintendent in Suwannee County and only black superintendent to be elected in 2 different counties, mm-hmm. who caught me walking down the hallway of Suwannee High School as a 9th grader and bumped me and grabbed my arm and said, "Hey, you think you can beat me in a fight?" And I said, "What?" He's like, "You think you can beat me in a fight?" And I said, "No, sir." And he said, "Because if you don't get your act together, I'm going to fight you all the way to greater." And Mr. Blaylock is at this time, he's 6'4", 280 pounds, looked like an athlete, was an athlete, black male. And for him to essentially take a liking to me and become that father figure for me, I was able to do exactly what many people didn't think I would ever do. I am the first person in my family to graduate from high school. I am the first person to graduate from college. I was the #1 recruit in the country playing football. And then I chose to go to the University of Florida. So my daddy's story is I went from fatherless to fatherhood. Mm-hmm. And that first image of a father was in Mr. Blaylock. And then the second image was in Pastor Greg Poe, who is no longer with us. But from a spiritual standpoint, he led me to understand what faith really was about.
Okay.
And it's not about religion. I'm not a religious person. But there are people that believe in God, and then there are people of faith. And I've come to find that the people that are actually the people of faith are actually much more likely to move mountains than those that are just believers. Because faith is action.
Right.
And faith, real people of faith take action. Yeah, you can believe that it's gonna rain tomorrow, but if you don't prepare for that rain or prepare as if it's going to rain, then there's a pretty good chance that you're either gonna sit in the house or you're gonna worry about whether and then it doesn't rain, and then it's like, oh, well, maybe the weatherman doesn't know what he's talking about. No, sometimes things change directions. I live in Florida, so
you got to be ready for that.
yeah. So hurricanes can be coming dead target to us, and then take a sharp left or a sharp right and not affect us as much as it affects other people, and that's life.
Okay, I want to give space to this conversation. I typically don't ask this question, but I know the relevancy of this, and I know how intimate your relationship is, and I know how impactful this relationship is on your life. Tell me your mommy's story.
Yeah, so my mom had me at a very young age. She was driven from St. Augustine, Florida, down to Boynton Beach, Florida, to have an abortion, and she jumped out of the car, and months later I was born. She refused to have an abortion. She had me at 12 years old. She was also a kid that, was a bad adolescent, and found out a lot of stuff that I didn't know when I wrote my first book. There's no such thing as a bad kid. I had to kind of go back and talk to my mom and talk to other people just about my journey to piece everything together. And, I always tell everyone that my mom is my first hero, because she made a decision, an unselfish decision, to bring me into this world when essentially she didn't have to. And she was actually she was told not to for various reasons. And life was hard, has been hard. I think my mom still deals with being 12 years old, and my mom never walked across a high school graduation stage. She graduated from high school, but she never got a chance to do the prom. She never got a chance to do all the things that my children have had an opportunity to do. And in some cases, I think my mom is still probably stuck in certain period of her life where she had to go through trauma. But she's still my mom, and I love her, and I'm grateful that she made the decision that she made, but more importantly, I know that there are thousands of people that are also grateful that she made the decision that she made.
It takes a particular type of person, period, to tell the truth and to live on truth. When you speak your truth these days, do you feel that it's more healing or more liberating?
I think healing is a constant thing. I think depending on what situation you're in, some things can essentially rip the Band-Aid off the scab, and you're kind of going through this process again. Like when I lost my grandmother in 1995 to breast cancer, that literally changed how I looked at life in so many ways. My grandma was my biggest advocate, and she's no longer here, and she didn't get a chance to see me walk across a high school graduation stage, which is something she wanted so much to do, because so many people said I wouldn't. And she was always the person that said that I would, and a college graduation stage. And so I think the liberating part in telling my story is not in me necessarily telling it, but having people that are in a crowd that can come and tell me they can relate because they also were product of a rape, or they also had a child out of rape, or they were single parents that were trying to make it, and some of the things that I said about my mom during the speech, they can relate to. Some of the men that I talked in front of, how they can come and tell me how they appreciate my realness and authenticity in telling my story, because it gives them a freedom to do it. When if they say, you know, if I see you with this big platform being real and honest and transparent, like, why can't I? I don't have 1 million followers on social media. I don't have, you know, I don't run around with underwear, boots, and baby oil for a living on TV.
Right.
And so I think it's liberating for them to be able to say, I'm not alone, and I'm not the only person that has had to deal with this, or even if they're trying to counsel other people through that situation, it's a liberating thing to know that, like, hey, there are other people that have been in this situation that came out just fine.
I'm always fascinated by people who seemingly have had a lot taken from them, that they find ways to transform and give. Like, you are give and do. Like, reading your bio, some of that stuff I know, but I know a lot just from watching you, following you, listening to you, talking to you, that your whole heart is about giving. Like, where does that come from?
I think because I was insignificant as a kid to so many people. I grew up poor, wearing shoes that, were talking, high water pants, hand-me-down clothes. But more importantly, I grew up in an impoverished mindset. And even with an impoverished mindset, I think a lot of people don't realize that when you grow up in a cluster of poverty, you witness people being philanthropic that don't have the means to be philanthropic. You'll see a single mother here, and my mom, who had food stamps, you'll see them pulling together food stamps to have a Thanksgiving dinner for everybody to come over and eat, or for everybody to kind of house or apartment hop with each other. My mom never could afford to pay for my brother's tuition to go to college. Neither one, to go to high school. They both went to private school. But she served. She would make sweet potato pies. She would work at a concession stand. She would, separate T-shirts. She would do laundry. She would do whatever as a servant. And so I witnessed that. I witnessed my grandmother give to people when she didn't have. I witnessed my grandmother also build something, in a business, and how she operated her business, and seeing certain people come into her bar or restaurant that didn't have, and she would give. And so for me, I'm very fortunate to be in the position that I'm in today, not because of my own talent, but really more so because of the investment of people's time, talent, and resources that they placed in me and in places that I went, the Florida Sheriff's Boys Ranch, the Boys and Girls Club. And so going from a kid that was insignificant to so many people because of my behavior, because of where I come from, because of how I looked, now I'm in a place that I, when you're insignificant, you strive to be successful because you're trying to prove people wrong in so many different facets of your life. Well, I've been successful 10,000 times over, and I think that anybody can be successful if they are consistent with whatever it is they want to be successful with. You want to lose weight, you eat healthy, eat better, you exercise, you're going to lose weight. It's just all these things. You want to own a home one day. There's financial disciplines that you have to start practicing to achieve that goal. At 47 years old now, I've been successful in everything that I've put my hands to almost. Have I had my setbacks? Absolutely. But when you trigger your mind from being, I gotta be successful, to, I just wanna be significant. Because success is for ourselves. It's a very selfish thing. Significance is for others. And when you live a life to not only do what God's called you to do, but you have an understanding that none of this is mine. You know, you're working to help fathers and all these things that you're doing, and you're accumulating things like, you know, if your son came home today and was like, Dad, my shoes busted open, and you both wear a size 12, you're gonna give him your shoes. You have family members that may fall on hard times, and you got to take them into your home for a little bit. It's not your home. Once you pass away, it's going to somebody.
Right.
You know, so all of this stuff is temporary that we have in life. It's just like, for me, I look at my journey and my path to where I am now and where I want to be in the future. And service has definitely been something that has taught me how to be a better dad, how to be a better servant, how to be a better businessman, how to understand the world that we're living in without getting into politics, without getting overly into religious, you know, like sometimes it bothers people when they're going through a tough time and someone says, well, let me pray for you. It's like, man, I don't need prayer. I need somebody to talk to me.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Somebody listen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so significance is where I want to be for the rest of my life, because I could be a 25-time WWE champion, a Super Bowl champion, all these things, but if I hadn't done anything that has changed people's lives, then I was just a successful athlete.
Right. Yeah, I think the old adage is that, you know, what will that dash between your life and your death mean? Right? Will that dash have any meaning? Will people remember that dash? The book is Wrestling with Fatherhood, My Championship Journey to My Greatest Title, Dad, Titus O'Neil. When you were at the University of Florida, star defensive end, even when I was reading that bio, like that was a small line, and then it just went to, but he gave here, he did this, he gave here. It's like, even in the midst of like the beginning of your success, you still found time to give. What was it about football that helped you navigate life?
Number one is, if you're in any sports locker room, you know, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter how fast you are, how strong you are, you're still part of a team. Doesn't matter if you're from Miami, Florida, or Madison, Wisconsin. Y'all all in the same place. And it's the only confine in life, a sports locker room, where regardless of your political affiliation, regardless of how much money you make, where you came from, whether you're on scholarship, not on scholarship, you know, whether you're a 5-star, 2-star, 3-star, it doesn't matter. It's the only place where you can truly bring out the best in human beings and learn. And I learned a lot from my coaches. I learned things that I wouldn't want to do as a coach. I learned things that I would want to implement as a coach. I learned a lot from my teammates, like those that were amazing teammates, and what it took to be a great human being on and off the field, and those that kind of were there just to try to see if they can go to the NFL. I didn't want to be that guy. So I think most businesses and enterprises would love to hire a former athlete or be led by a former athlete, not just because they did something that you couldn't do, or you did something that they couldn't do, but more importantly, they know you understand the value of team. And when you are on winning teams, and I've never been on a losing team my entire life, it translates over into your day-to-day life.
Right.
You have an understanding of, like, yeah, today was not a good day of practice. Today was not a good day for my son at school, but it's not the end of the season.
Right.
You know, it's part of the process of getting to that ultimate goal. And then the only difference between sports and real life is that there is, the end goal is ever changing. Like in basketball, you want to be an NBA champion. And then if you're the NBA champion crowned that year, you've reached your goal. Football, same, you know, baseball, whatever that goal is. But in life, your goal could have been graduating from high school. So what do you do after that? What's your next goal? Because it can't be just this, you know? And it's not the same. You can't graduate from high school every 4 years.
No, you can't.
Yeah.
Absolutely. When you got into the WWE, like, was there a moment when you got there, you was like, looked around, and was like, I can't believe I'm here?
Plenty of moments I looked around that I could not believe I was there.
Now, talk about the journey. How'd you get there?
I mean, I was driving in South Tampa one day, and Dave Bautista is one of my best friends, and he had talked to me about where the performers would go to get rehab and where they trained at, and it's in Tampa, South Tampa at the time. And it's called FCW. I was picking up a pair of dress shoes. I just went to Burlington. Didn't have much money then. I just got divorced too, so I was just bargain shopping. But I had a taste for some jerk chicken. And there's a place in Tampa called the Jerk Hut. And there was a location off of Gandy and Del Mabry. Well, I come out of the plaza to go towards the Jerk Hut, and I see the building. It's a black and yellow building, FCW. I pick up the phone, I say, Dave, is this a place you've been trying to tell me to check out? And he said, yeah, and I said, I think I'm gonna poke my head in the back door and see what it's about. And he said, yeah, look for Dusty Rhodes or Steve Kern. You know, those two guys run the building. And I was like Atomic Elbow Dusty Rhodes? He's like, yeah, you know. And yeah, I went in there and ended up, they weren't there at the time, but they Norman Smiley invited me to come back it was a TV taping that night. So I left there, went and got my kids out of daycare. They were 2 and 4 at the time, and asked them if they wanted to go to a wrestling match. And they asked if Uncle Dave was going to be there, and I was like, no, he's not. But this is where Uncle Dave, like the equivalent of what Uncle Dave would have started. So we went down there and watched the show, and I'm just looking at my kids like blown away like I am, seeing it, you know, up close and ringside and just watching all this stuff go on. And I looked over at TJ and I was like, hey, do you think this is something Dad can do? And he said, Dad, I think you can do anything. And then I looked over at Titus and I said, what do you think? And he shook his head, you know, and smiled. And afterwards, I ended up talking to Dusty and Steve. I'm driving home, and John Laurinaitis calls me and says, hey, you know, we want to bring you in, see if you like us, see if we like you. We'll give you a 3-day tryout, and you will go from there. And literally, and he asked me, was I in shape? And I was like, well, I think so, but I've never wrestled before.
Okay.
And he was like, can you come in tomorrow for your first day? And I was like, yeah, I can. So I went in and tried out. That was first day, and then John called me, you know, later that afternoon and said, hey, we're going to sign you. The process is usually 6 to 8 months. And mind you, I just got a divorce, so I was either going to try to coach college football at Florida, or I was, you know, I don't know what else I was going to do. But I was definitely on the path to go become a college football coach.
Okay.
And I told John that. I said, I'm either going to do this with WWE or I'm going to go coach college football, but I don't have 6 to 8 months to figure it out. And he said, well, give me an hour or so and I'll call you back. And then he called me back within an hour. He said, all right, before we sign you, we need to get you a physical, We have to fly you to Pittsburgh. That's where our doctors are. So I got on the plane that Tuesday, did my physical. They overnighted me a contract that Wednesday, and then that following Monday, I was in the ring learning how to become a WWE superstar.
We gotta come back and talk about that whole thing because I'm huge. Started with WWF, you know, AWC, ACW, all of those back in the day. Like watching all of those, Bruno Sammartino. I remember literally watching those matches on TV. So I'm fascinated. Still don't follow it as much today as I used to, but that was a bonding thing for me and my son, which is where I'm going now, because like different from me, we're bonding on the outside, but you bonding on the inside. Your sons are riding with you through this journey. Like, how much did that mean to you, and how did you, because fatherhood is your thing, before, after, now, but did it strengthen as a result of that, or was it just, I'm still doing what Titus and TJ is doing, and we still moving along. We no ebbs and flows, but fatherhood is clearly not only to me, but I want everybody else to understand that it's important as well.
Yeah, so for me, I made a pledge at 13 years old when my best friend's dad got murdered. And he was one of the biggest dope dealers in South Florida. And I remember after the funeral, you know, my best friend was like, a lot of people think my dad was a bad dude, but my dad to me was a hero. And his dad was a great dude. Like, he just was in the wrong possession. I mean, this dude like would pay for kids to play their registration fees, to play sports, to get them cleats, to this. And he would always tell his son, like, don't be like me, be better than me. And he demanded that he got good grades in school. He demanded that he had good behavior in school. And it's like an oxymoron based on the business that he was in. But I always said that if I am nothing else, you know, I want to be a hero to my kids. And, you know, when I was going through my divorce, my kids literally were the reason that saved my life. And I then became more apparent became more apparent to me that, like, if I don't, you know, because like I told you, I've been winning my whole life, and the biggest failure, but the only failure that I looked at in my life at that time was me going through a divorce, and it felt like death. But years later, I realized that divorce isn't death. You know, it's the dying of some old things that I think really necessarily both parties need in some cases. It's a self-examination of, like, all right, where did I go wrong? What could I have done better? And I'm not gonna blame her for why we're not together. I can take accountability for what I did or didn't do, and learn and grow from it. And the best thing that I can do at this point in my life is to be the greatest father that I could possibly be to my two sons. And I just embellished myself in that. And those boys, like, it didn't matter if I had a rough practice at WWE or if I lost or I won, you know, they greeted me the same. And still to this day, you know, it's what's up, Dad, you know, and I have a daughter that I adopted as well, and a few years ago, and I had a vasectomy in 2012 because I felt like, you know, one of the goals in life for me was to never have children outside of wedlock. And once I got divorced, I never felt like I would get married again. I just said, like, I did it. I did it and it didn't work, so it's probably not for me. I think part of that is the competitiveness in me, to just make everything work. And then the other part is, I just did not want to have a child outside of wedlock. And because I grew up around that. And so having the vasectomy would definitely help me
stay focused.
Not do that. But my children, you know, specifically TJ and Titus, I mean, they saved my life. Like, when I felt like the worst of the worst, they made me feel like the best of the best.
Why don't you think dads, you and I was talking earlier about, our program dads and these new dads today, and some old dads as well. They don't get that. Like, you're sharing that with me, and I'm thinking the same thing in my mind, particularly as it related to my youngest daughter. I'm like when she was born, it took me a minute to get there, but like, she saved my life, and she don't. And when I say that to her, she doesn't get it. She's like, "Dad, what are you talking about?" I'm like, "No, you don't get it. Like, there was something about your birth, to which I was birthed again as well. I was reborn when you were born, and that time it stuck. But before then, it didn't stick. I was always Jay-Z." When Blue Ivy was born, Jay-Z's comment was, wow, as he was looking at his daughter, "I'll never call a woman a B again." And I heard that, and I was listening to him speaking and talking about that, and my mind was, why didn't you come to that epiphany when you got married? Like, what was it about your daughter that changed that? But getting married didn't change that. And I just believe that there's something powerful about children that has an impact on men that we haven't had enough conversation about. But why do you think some men get that and some men don't?
I think some of them, some men, like, I didn't grow up with a father. There's a lot of men that didn't grow up with fathers, or even the good fathers. Even those that had good fathers or quote unquote bad fathers, that were absentee fathers, etc. I think men there's no manual for how to be a dad. And we're used to fixing stuff. We can make almost anything work. And I think when you're dealing with human life, it's not as easy to navigate and mold, especially when you have traumas yourself that you have not addressed. You have traumas on the other side with your partner that they may have not addressed. And so now it's two kind of hurt people trying to raise something with love that they don't even understand themselves because they never got it. And so a lot of men don't truly understand the value of what love really is until they have children. And unless they're recklessly having children, you can't bring a child into this world and not have it affect you in a positive way. It is very nerve-wracking. It is very scary for some people. It's like, damn, man, I wasn't even expecting to have a kid with this chick, or dang, I wanted to have kids, but not this early, not this way. But you're here now, bro. So, and it's just, if you're a real man that takes real truth, and I think most men and women want structure and discipline. They need it. Otherwise, their life is gonna be all over the place.
Yeah.
But real men, I think, also have to be realistic to the fact that, I'm jacked up, and I need to address that before I try to. And a lot of people think they gotta have so much right. You know what I mean? Like, man, I wasn't ready for this. I was gonna do this, when I get it. Like, man, listen, God has blessed you with this human being.
Right.
Now.
Right.
We in the black community always got a saying of, we'll figure it out. Figure that shit out, bro.
Right.
Figure it out,
Ask somebody.
Yeah, ask some people, surround yourself with men.
Yeah.
And I think another problem that we have is that we have guys that are allowing other guys in their circle not to be good fathers.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
Like if somebody told, like if one of my friends' son had a championship basketball game, and they were supposed to choose between going with me to a concert versus going to their kid's tournament, like I'm gonna look at you different if you don't go to your kid's tournament.
Right.
Like this concert is nothing compared to that. Your presence alone at that game, whether they win, lose, or draw, is going to be so much more impactful on your relationship with your family than this concert ever will be impactful on you.
Yeah, I'm still getting used to that. I'm still getting used to daddy confessions. Just because of my aura, my circle, what I do, like when I get guys that come around me, they like don't, if something ain't right, sooner or later it's like, yo, can I talk to you about something? It's like, yo, I haven't spoken about it. I'm like, really? I'm like, and I always say like, man, why do people do that? And my wife said that to me. That's because of who, like people who want to get close to you know that there's a condition to do that. Like if they want to get close to you, even though you haven't said it, if I got to be in this guy's friendship circle, there's a condition for me to be here. And if I don't meet that condition, then I'm not going to get close. But if I do, there's some truth that I have to tell in order to find some help, you know, in that space. Again, the book is Wrestling with Fatherhood, My Championship Journey to My Greatest Title, Dad. As we close out, we were talking about something earlier that I want you to kind of talk a little bit about, because I think this is something else that dads struggle with, and that is inspiring and supporting our dads and not trying to vicariously live through them, right? I told one friend the other day that there's a thin line between supportive dad and Joe Jackson, right? But there are times where it's hard to differentiate which one you're gonna be, whether you're not gonna be, you know what, son, we'll get him next time, or yo, you dribbling too low, you know, you gotta, your stance is not right, you know, you gotta do all these things for your sons, right? Because they're watching you, they're seeing dad, your daughter too. We don't want to exclude girls from this because we have the same expectations for them. Like, how have you managed juggling, like really pressing what you believe is their potential and stepping back and allowing them to figure out what that potential is?
Yeah, I think first and foremost, you got to know each individual kid and how they respond to stuff. And again, when we were talking earlier in the conversation, sports does that for you. Being in the locker room, sports, like you recognize the art of communication real quick, whether it's from the coach to the player or the player to the player. And some coaches, you know, coaches recognize the fact that like some players you got to look at, you can give them a look and they be like, my bad, coach. And then some other players, you got to be like, man, what the hell are you doing this and that? Because that's the only thing they respond to.
Right.
And you have to learn how, you only learn how to communicate with your kid by communicating with your kid. Your kids will tell you everything you need to know when they feel vulnerable with you to be able to do so. Right. And I used to always tell my kids, man, you can talk to me about anything. And if you got to cuss, I cuss. So I can't be telling you not to cuss.
Right.
And I've given them this freedom to like express themselves respectfully, but it's sometimes where, you know, it may come off disrespectful, but I understand that they would never disrespect me like that.
Right.
You know, I have to recognize that they're talking in emotion. I have to recognize when they're talking in their feelings. I have to recognize when they're talking in their facts. And from a coaching standpoint, coaching my kids throughout life is, you know, from, you know, I say 0 to 5 years old, you're trying to control their way of thinking.
Right.
From 5 years old to 13 years old, you're trying to control their way of behaving. And from 13 years old to 18 years old, you're trying to control their way of decision making. And then once they hit to 18 years old, you've gone through 3 different phases in life in which you groomed your children to the best of your ability. And once my kids got around 16 or 17, I let them start developing understandings of their own. So it's like, okay, Dad, I want to be a Division I athlete. All right. Instead of me getting upset and being like, why ain't you getting in here and working out and this and that? You say you want to do this, you say you want to do that. I just tell them straight up, hey, I will invest in you when you invest in yourself. So don't ask me about getting no gym membership, don't ask me about getting no trainer, don't ask me about nothing until you can show me basic responsibility. Doing it on your own, starting off first. If I see you going to the workouts at the school and being the first one there and the last one to leave, now you want to get in some extra work. I understand as an athlete, you got to do some things differently than everybody else is normally doing. And so now I'm giving you the power to control your own destiny. Because you know, if I do my work and put my time in, my dad's going to give me this, he's going to do this for me, he's going to call this person, he's going to do this, he's going to do that. But I also know that my dad's word means something. So rather than raising my children in fear of getting a whooping, my children are raised because and with fear of disappointing me. Because I also go throughout life not wanting to disappoint them.
Right.
And so you won't see me getting a DUI, you won't see me on TMZ for domestic, like none of these, you won't see that because I don't want to embarrass my children. And men, particularly fathers that go to games and they're like yelling at the coach and yelling from the stands, son, I told you to do such, this and that. All you're doing is basically reversing anything positive that could have come out of the lesson. If that kid lost that game, but you were there cheering them on and like talking to him or her after the game, hey, I saw with this, you know, they'll want to watch film with you. They'll call you and be like, Dad, what'd you think of my game? You know, and you can have like real, like, hey, today wasn't your day. Like you missed a bunch of blocks or you missed a bunch of shots or you should have hit these free throws, you should have, like you can give them raw commentary at that point because they know it's not coming from a place of anger. They know it's not coming from a place of disappointment. It's coming from a place of teaching and love. And I'm like telling you these things because I'm not gonna be like some of these parents that be like, my baby is the greatest. Oh, you see he had 37 points, this and that, but did you also see he turned the ball over 15 times?
Right.
You know, or he threw for 350 yards, yeah, but he had 4 interceptions too.
Right.
Let's highlight that too.
Yeah.
And so now we, you know, men, I think, are underappreciated in so many different ways. And part of that is our fault because we're not present when we need to be present. And we think that we can buy our way into a position or provide a gift in our way or gift our way into a position when we're really gifting and buying our way out of position, because really the most important gift that you can give to your family is your presence.
Absolutely.
And the greatest gift that you'll ever give your family is a good last name.
Yeah, I learned with my son, because I struggled in the beginning, basically because I didn't know. I didn't have games. My dad, I didn't have that. So when he started playing competitively, I'm fresh. So I'm doing what you think you're supposed to do on court. Total 180 transition, like what I realized that changed for me is when we would have our conversations that my sentences turned from sentences with periods to sentences with question marks. So my conversation with him was, hey, how'd you think that go? How'd you think that went? He was like, I said, so what you think? Or if he would say, I had a bad day, so what you think was going wrong? And then I would just, he would, as I would ask him questions, he would answer for himself. And so he becomes more open to talk to me, because I'm not speaking to him in sentences and exclamation points. It's in questions, and I'm just drawing out what I know you already know this stuff. let's just explore it, together. I think that's a tactic that some of these parents, and not just dads, I've seen some moms wilding all the way out, in
yelling
the
from the
space.
stands, telling them, come on, ref, y'all cheating our boys. If the coaches are telling everybody to calm down, we're going to be all right. We're going to be all right. Let's play through it. Let's play through it. Yeah. And they got parents in the back. Come on, ref.
Right.
Y'all tripping.
Right.
Coach, y'all need to do something about this, and that. Now everything is going awry. That's why when I go to my kids' games, you don't hear a peep out of me.
Right.
Never hear a peep. Number one, because I'm already getting a lot of attention coming to the game because I'm a WWE Superstar. So I don't even sit in the crowd with nobody. I sit off in the end zone, usually by myself, or I'm like in a box somewhere. If it's now they're in college, so I'm never in the vicinity where people can talk to me about my kid, because y'all don't know my kid, number one, and most of y'all don't even know football.
Right.
So you're trying to give coaching commentary on something that you've never done, your kid's never done, your husband's never done.
Right. What's new for you? What's coming up? What should we expect? Movies?
Yeah.
Tell us what you up to these days.
Yeah, I got a couple film projects that coming out in 2025, so I'm really excited about
Gonna be an
that.
action hero? What you doing? You drama, comedy?
Got the 3 letters called NDA that I can't really talk about, but I'll be more than happy to come back on the podcast and promote it once they're all out in the public.
Okay.
But no, I got that going on. I'm obviously still doing speaking engagements. I'm really pushing forward with my academy at my school down in Tampa, trying to make sure that everything that I've envisioned can come into fruition, but more importantly, everything that God has placed on me to do, that it gets done. But yeah, I'm really excited about like 2025 and beyond, just because there was a big pruning process for me, like pruning even with people that I had closer relationships with than I probably should have. But it's also a growing year for me as well in 2024. I've had a hell of a year in so many different ways, and I just think that this was just the introductory period to 2025 and beyond. And I'm really excited about doing it. Dropping this book, obviously, on Father's Day weekend this year, and having a big Father's Day celebration down in Tampa, where we honored dads from different, backgrounds and things like that. Definitely was a treat, on top of the fact that, like, this book, came out essentially the 20 years after I was crowned dad, June 16th, 2002, or 2004, excuse me. And my son, TJ, my oldest son, TJ, was a football player at UCF, was there. My daughter, Leah, was there. My son, Titus, was there on Father's Day at this event. And it was a very special year for me, for them.
Well, we appreciate you, bro. Thank you so much for joining us. You are associated with some great, one of the things that warmed my heart about is, I love Dave, first of all, but then Terry Crews has got us another cat that's got just wisdom in him, stuff in him.
Well, Will Packard did my forward.
Did I see that? I did see that. Yeah. And so, but when I saw this, the three of you, it's no question why you are friends. It's very obvious if you know your hearts why the three of you guys, are friends. Thank you so much. I appreciate you always lending your time to me as a person, as a friend. And I follow and support everything you do 1,000%. And as my bishop always says, I love you, and there's absolutely nothing you could do about it, right? And I'm only always a phone call away, and however I can help. And to my I Am Dad podcast listeners, you know how I like to leave you. Always be kind to others as you're kind to yourself, or you might find yourself by yourself. Always shoot high for your goals, because even if you miss, you'll be amongst the stars. And as my good friend and mentor, Art Mitchell, used to always say to me, it's nice to be important, but you know what, Kenny? It's much more important to be nice. Till next Sunday, God bless and peace out.
Thank you so much for taking the time to spend with us. You've been listening to I Am Dad Podcast. We hope that you have been informed, encouraged you to think, or even inspired your heart for the love of dads. The conversation does not end here. Come back and join us next week. Same time, same place. Or you can continue the dialogue on our I Am Dad Facebook page. We also invite you to listen to past episodes, learn more about us, and keep up with special activities by visiting IamDadPodcast.com. That's IamDadPodcast.com. Until next time, I leave you with this reminder of manhood from 1 Corinthians chapter 13, verse 11. When I was a child, I spoke as a child. I understood as a child. I thought as a child. But when I became a man, I put away childish things. Because of this reminder, I will always understand that I am dad, period.